Hello and welcome everyone from Bloomfield College and those who are visiting from the outside. We are excited today. This is our second installment of our census campaign, we're calling it. This is a Census 2020 campaign, virtual campaign that we are on here at Bloomfield College. And we have someone very special here with us today. Joining us again, we have Dr. Evans. I'm gonna allow her to open up as I prepare the bio for our guest, Ms. Patricia Williamson, who is the director for New Jersey Counts Project, all about Census 2020. Isn't that right, Ms. Williamson?
That's right. Hello.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Evans?
Yeah, again, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Williamson, for coming and joining us today. And for all of you participants that are out there as well. This work is so important. My husband and I literally just having a conversation in the kitchen talking about, with census going on and voting that's happening now, that it's even more critical for our voices to be heard, for you to know that your vote does count. And also, too, that you need to make sure that you get your census done, because I'm not really sure, I'm sure it'll be shared later on, what percentage of our community has actually completed the census thus far and all the work that we need to do. And when I think about the census, and specifically as far as Bloomfield College is concerned, it has a major impact related to resources. Everything from the type of funding you can get for Pell grants to just a variety of different things that I'm sure that will be shared with you. I do want to just again welcome everybody to give you some additional information for the Bloomfield College community. We're having our student government elections and they're coming up. And this may seem like a small issue, but it really isn't. It's a big issue. And we want you students to make sure that you get out there and that you vote in the student government elections. It's going to be held May 8th, I believe, through the 10th, starting at 12 and ending on the 10th at 12 o'clock. The positions that are open go the full range from president. Let me make sure I get them correctly on here. I don't think he put them on here for me this time, but the presidential election I know is an option. Secretary, treasurer, and I think vice president for organizational affairs. Yeah, I think those are the positions that are open right now. So please vote. Again, your voice matters. And then the final thing that is going on too as well, as far as Bloomfield College is concerned, we're having our Portraits of Excellence program nomination. And this, again, kind of the work that Mrs. Williamson does, and this is all about service. It's all about leadership, and it's all about impact. So we have faculty and staff and others to nominate students, and we pick 3, I believe, to have your portrait put up on the walls, or we're going to do some other creative things with those pictures. We want you to be recognized for the work that you do. So please, everyone, nominate someone that you think has had a major impact, that has engaged in making sure that the college mission is exemplified in their work. We want their recognition to be seen by the full community. So again, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to be sitting and learning some more too about the census. This only happens, it's kind of a historical event. It only happens every 10 years. And so for some of you, it'll be the first time that you can participate in this. We have about 100 students on our campus right now. We need to make sure that you complete this census, and Ms. Williamson will talk to you more about how you can do it, because you can do it online. We want to make sure you're safe and all those kinds of things, but we need you to do this for your community. We need you to do it for Bloomfield College. And we also need you to call home and tell your parents, if they're not having done it, that they need to do it as well, and your grandmother and your cousins, anybody else in your family, your friends. Check on each other and let them know the importance for our community especially, that we need to make sure that our voices are heard and that we're counted in the census. So I'll turn it over to you all. I think I've talked too much now, but I'm excited to hear what has to be shared with us today.
As always, thank you, Dr. Evans. We appreciate your presence and engagement on today. And so I have the distinct pleasure of introducing who was a participant. She was in the chat room engaging in our first seminar event with Dr. Harley. And so it was gracious of her to be able to take time to join us today, and so we appreciate you. Ms. Patricia D. Williamson, is the New Jersey Counts Project Director at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. Patricia is leading the Institute's work to ensure that a complete and accurate count of New Jersey's urban communities in the 2020 census. She is also an adjunct professor at Bloomfield College. Although her professional background has been in telecommunications sector, she has plenty of voluntary experience in civic engagement and social justice. Patricia is currently the New Jersey coordinator for the Eastern Region Social Action Committee of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Patricia earned a BA in mathematics from Hampton University, an MS in computer science from Howard University, and an MA in education and human development in the Educational Technology Leadership Program at the George Washington University. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Terrance and Dr. Evans. It's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to be, and hello to everyone listening today.
So I want to start a little bit about, we like to on the webinars, when we talk about empowerment, I think we all appreciate it, regardless if we're in college or not, younger or not, to be able to relate to those who are in leadership positions, to kind of see a roadmap to how you got to where you are today. Tell us about yourself growing up as a teenager, way before census, right?
Way before census. But that's okay. I grew up in New Jersey. I started out in Irvington and then went to public schools in Franklin Township, Somerset, New Jersey. And I do remember, I'm not going to completely give away my age, but I do remember taking the census with my parents one time while I was in Somerset. So I was young enough to help out and old enough to kind of know what was going on. And we did it as a family, you know. When it came to each person, we were like, oh, we're going to do this. So that's just a plug for the census. But I didn't think about it again until recently. What I did, I grew up in a house that had a chalkboard on it. My father is a electrical engineer with background, and he turned into patent law. He's retired attorney. And so, but he loved math. Everything is about math. And so we literally would come home, we had math problems, and if we had a problem with that, you know, with an issue, we had math on it. So when I went to school, I was going to do something in technology. I started out as an electrical engineering major. Physics was not my friend, although it could be others, but physics was not. So I shifted from there to math. And then when I graduated with my math degree, which was fine, then I moved into computer science. So my one little story with that is you can change. You know, it's okay that if you don't get it right the first time, you can still come in and change. And computer science was where I wanted to be. So for the next, I'm going to say about 20 years or so, I worked with AT&T, Lucent Technologies, Telcordia, as a systems engineer, writing requirements for optical networks and everything like that. But the one thing that I missed, although I could speak to customers and see why they wanted the products that we wanted, that was not as often as I liked it. So I really like to talk to people and understand the big picture. So in the meantime, while I was doing this for 20 years, I pledged Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. I became part of the Social Action Committee, and from that part, from my chapter, it then grew into where I am now at the state level, state social action, and I've been doing that for 6 years. So while I was doing that, I was able to follow a lot of things in my passion in terms of getting people out to vote, getting people. I did work with the census for 2010 through Delta and trying to get people to get counted. So that led to when it was finally time for me to kind of reinvent myself and do a pivot. I was already teaching first-year seminar at Bloomfield College. If anyone's out there, hello. Love the freshmen. The first-year seminar is awesome. And I said, let me see where I can work, where the passion is. And so through the connections I had, there was an opportunity to work on the census through the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, which is a nonprofit based in Newark, but it's statewide. And so I was able to come in about a year and a half ago and work on a statewide strategic plan to reach African Americans in hard-to-count cities. And hard-to-count was based on people that did not self-respond in 2010. So that's what I've been doing. And I will have to say the plan that I had for maybe for about a year and 3 months got shattered about a month ago. So we could talk about that, but we we still need to get people counted. But that's kind of how I came over to where I am. And so I would definitely tell people, don't be afraid of change, one. Two, do it wisely, save some money on the side, because I will say telecommunications and nonprofit, it's a little bit different in the pay scale, but it's also very different in terms of the rewards. The rewards may not always be financial. Sometimes it's something that you get internally, which is seeing somebody understand why they need to do something for themselves and for their community. So that's kind of how I got here.
Speaking of saving money, I just want to go back a little bit. Did you save your parents any money? I mean, wow, Hampton University, Howard University. Tell us about that experience.
I worked a little bit. It's hard to say I saved them money. My father may or may not be on this call, so I'm not gonna say that. But he saved money so that he could get me through, and so Hampton was wonderful. I did work part-time as a piano accompanist for the Hampton University Concert Choir. I was actually the first person that I know of that actually got paid to do that. So I had a little bit of money, and a little bit of scholarships, but clearly I was not a full ride person. So my parents definitely took care of that. When I was there, I definitely wanted to make sure, and I say this to my first-year seminar students as well, to keep a good balance of what you're doing academically, also with what you're doing socially, culturally, to make sure you're building yourself up as a full person. And so, matter of fact, last weekend, the choir is like my family. We call it family, friends like family. And we had a reunion last Saturday. We were all supposed to go down to Hampton for the 150th anniversary of the Hampton University Choir, where all ages would come. And the years, about 6 years before and after me, we got together on Zoom, and we talked about everything. The only thing we did not do was sing, but we just came back together because those bonds were really created there at Hampton. Howard Graduate School, I was there for 2 years and loved that as well. It's very different than undergrad. You may hear, I'm taking 9 credits as opposed to 18, but they are very different when it comes to the amount of work that you're doing. So I really had more of a head-down, busy experience at Howard. And the connections I had, I still have, but definitely grad school is a different beast. The one at George Washington University, I did that online. And that one I don't have as many networks to go back to. I had people, but because we were not in person, like the other two, I don't have as many close connections, but the knowledge of the educational technology, that's been very helpful.
I had some time when I worked in politically advised, now Senator Cory Booker, and he used to say about Councilman Carlos Gonzalez, how Councilman, that he had more degrees than a thermometer. And until I met Dr. Evans, I hadn't met anyone else that I can have the pleasure of saying that. What was your driving force? What was your passion? What made you say, you know what, I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna go get another master's degree? And you talked about the importance of being well-rounded, which you definitely are. We are that's important to install in all college students, but particularly at Bloomfield College, which you also know as a professor. Elaborate a little bit more on that and kind of give us a little bit of your story, and then we'll transition on to more about the census work.
Sure. Well, I went back because I really wanted to move towards what drove me, which was young people. With my college experience at Hampton in particular was one of the most transformational of my life. And when I got older, I noticed through church, I was, always staying connected with them. Back then, we'd send tapes and CDs and things like that, just trying to make sure they were okay. And when they came back for the winter time, we tried to do things. But then I was also still with young people, young adults in particular. I like that age group because that's where people really start to make some decisions for themselves. And we're not necessarily telling them what to do, but that's where we can become mentors or guides. And so I wanted to get into higher education. I was doing some teaching on the side, but I really wanted to get into higher education. And so since I already had the background with the technology, I went for that second master's about 10, 12 years later. I was well into AT&T and Lucent, but that's when I went back for the Educational Technology Leadership Program. So that was kind of the impetus behind that. I will say while I was there, I had an elective that I needed to take, and I took a politics class, educational policy, where I actually stayed on campus for 2 weeks. And that's probably a little bit of how I ended up here as well, because here I'm not a political person. I like policy. I'm not a big politics person. You do this, I do that. I'm not really into the politicians, but I know you have to work with politicians in order to get policy in. And so that idea of being able to see that through having conversations with people and with organizations, I really can make a change. And if I partner with you, we can make a change because there's strength in numbers. That's something that really resonated with me.
So I want to start off with maybe just Bloomfield College, because you are a professor here or adjunct professor here. So you understand our student population and our community. How can Census 2020 shape Bloomfield's future and the future of not just our students, but even our staff and faculty, regardless of where they may live?
Well, thank you for that question. Bloomfield has an extremely unique population. I think one of the reasons I like being at Bloomfield is because in some ways it reminds me of my historically black college and university experience. We have very high levels of African Americans. We have high levels also of Latino, Latina, and Latinx. And those minority populations are usually undercounted in the census. And so and then this is also a very urban-based school. And so when people talk about people that are hard to reach, there's different phrases, hard to survey. Basically, there's also a lot of disinformation within our culture in terms of being counted. Some things are we call it disinformation, which is basically deceitful misinformation.
We call it a lie, they say, right? The intent to deceive.
Yeah, I didn't make it up, but there's misinformation where someone may say something incorrect by accident, and then there's disinformation where they know they're telling you something that's not true. So that's one of the things that I'm working with a lot of our urban areas. And so when I spoke with the Bloomfield students last year, most of the conversation was around a few areas of why to take the census. Because talking to freshmen, many of them had never taken a census with anybody, and so this would be their first one. If they were living on their own, they'd be taking it themselves. If they were living at home with family, they would take it there if the family would take it. So what I'm trying to do is let people know it's about money, power, and respect. And those three, if people can remember anything, those are the three areas that the census can bring back to you. In terms of money, that's a way of saying funding for essential services. There's a little video that I sent in that you can show at any time. But basically, it talks all of the things that we're going through right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. They're really relying on a lot of areas where funding was already provided, and now we need even more funding. So if you look at our hospitals, you look at our just healthcare in general, the construction, the roads and the bridges, you'll notice some things also with the education. Take a look at the schools. You know, all the kids that still get free lunches, they still needed free lunches even after the schools closed. And so there are places where the schools are open so that the children can come get that meal for the day. Those are funded in large part by census numbers. And so if the numbers aren't right, then the services that are provided are also not right. So that's one of the areas in terms of the money. In terms of the power, there's political power. So it's something that a lot of people don't think about, but we're all in these little groups called districts. And if you are in a certain district, they need to know how many people are in each city so that they can put these districts together properly. And it's a process called redistricting. I don't want to get into a lot of detail with redistricting, but if certain people are not counted, then it makes it look like they're not in a certain district.
Yes.
Okay, so then that takes away your power. 10 years ago, we lost a district in terms of Congress. So we talked about Senator Booker recently. We keep our 2 senators, but we had 13 House representatives, like Representative Donald Payne. He's in this area. There were 13, and we ended up losing one, so now we have 12. That means there's only 12 people down there. When it's time to vote for New Jersey, there's only 12 that can vote on our behalf. So we don't want to lose any more representation. So those are some of the things that we talk about in terms of why it's important. And as Dr. Evans said, if you're in college, and this is what I really honed in on, and I saw light bulbs go off, Pell grants are federally funded. So if everyone in the room, I used to have everyone in the room stand up, and then let's say half of you sit down because this city in Essex County decided we're not going to count. So I'm coming around with money. I'm the federal government. I'm only going to give it to the half of the room that actually counted, but then they have to share it with you. So not only do they not get the full money, none of you do. You only get half of what you all really need. And if you calculate that in terms of federal Pell grants, now this is the Patricia Williamson version. You won't find this anywhere else. But that would mean you only got about half of what you deserved. So whatever the number really is, you want your full number. You don't want to have to share your final amount of grant. You need to make sure not only you're counted, but your classmates are counted, your family's counted, everyone is counted.
Patricia, where does this money come from when we talk about the funding, the grant? Where does it originate from?
It's coming from, do you mean in terms of coming from the federal government? Well,
yes.
Actually, a lot of it comes from us. I mean, a lot of it goes in terms of taxes, and it's down that way.
Yes.
And so what we're trying to do is get as much of it back as we can.
Get some of our money back, right?
Right. We're the second state behind New York in terms of paying the most taxes and not getting as much back. Mm-hmm. New York first, we're second. So that's where it comes from. But in terms of, once they get it, they're going to keep it until we ask for it, and we can only ask for it that way once every 10 years.
And the way that this process came about, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the census? Who sat in the room? Was it politicians? Was it sort of political operatives from the outside? Who said that this is how this money, this is where this money would come from? Ideally, a significant amount of it comes from taxes, but then this is how the community will advocate for dollars to be reinvested, ideally back into their community. How did that come about?
Ooh, well, it's in the Constitution, and I'm not going to be able to go into all the detail with the history lesson as it sounds like I need to, but the Constitution, now I will say this about the Constitution, they had to amend it a little bit because it was there, particularly 1790, it's been there, and they wanted to make sure that everyone in the United States was counted, period, everyone. They had to change that for Black people later because at first we were considered slaves, we were considered 3/5 of a person, and so they counted us differently, they counted Native American Indians differently, and so now it's even. I can't tell you what year that was changed, but it was changed so that now everyone is counted equally. And the result of that, they wanted to know the numbers because they wanted to do what's called reapportionment. And that's how they would reapportion the money per the states based on what they need. Anything else, I have to come back to you.
No, I think that's exactly enough of where I want you to touch on, because it's important in our community when we turn in terms of being motivated or empowered to do something, is how we feel about it. And sometimes when we miss the history of how we got there. So this was something so important. It's so important that it's in the Constitution, but in terms of people of color, Black and brown folks fighting for it, this is something that still had to go through a second process to have us counted, even from a legislative perspective. And so we can't legislate how we're treated. We have to do our part and actually take action. Isn't that part of what the census is really all about? And how are we doing in Essex County and places where our students come from, like North Camden, Patterson, Irvington, East Orange?
I would like you to pull up the graph for that, if you don't mind. A picture's worth a word. But you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the issues, a lot of people look at the history and they point to the fact that they didn't want us to be, that we were 3/5 of a person. But if you stay with that, today, certain people would be happy if you're not counted. So don't do that to yourself. That's the respect part. Just remember that you matter, and it's very important that all of you are counted and all of your family members are counted. So I'll show you how we're doing. It's one of the last slides, Terrance. I want to, we can just kind of go, it's the graph. Let's see. Number 7.
Number 7, okay.
So this is how we're doing as of today. If you look at the website that's at the bottom of the screen, you can look at these every day and just see how the numbers change. And it's usually about 2 days different. So when I pulled it this morning, these are the response rates as of April 21st, 2020. Okay. So the goal is the green line on top. We want 100% of everyone to be counted. So you can see we're a long way from there. If you go to the bottom in the orange, you'll see the United States, and actually you'll see New Jersey has slightly more people counted percentage-wise than in the United States, which is good. But when you look at our urban areas, that's when the numbers start to go down. But let me give a positive for Bloomfield. Bloomfield is the furthest out, which I'm happy to see. That's not necessarily the school, but that's Bloomfield, the city, the township. And so that is about 55%. So then if you look, let me see if I can do this a little bit better. The rest of these are some of the areas that are known to have very hard to count areas, particularly for the Black populations, which usually runs into the Latinx populations as well. So what I'm doing while I'm talking.
I was going to ask you all too, can you just go to the slideshow to make it a little bit larger and not have the sides on the side?
Okay.
Okay. Oh yeah, Terrance, you can do that. I will look. So Essex County is at 46%. Newark is at 35%. Camden is 37%. Patterson is 38%. And Trenton is 34%. So those are the current numbers as of 2 days ago, which is what you will get when you pull it today. The next time they update this will be about 3 o'clock today. But you'll see the 50% number, the one with New Jersey, USA, those are roughly where the Census Bureau said they wanted our numbers to be at about this time. But now that we're in the midst of the COVID pandemic, the concern is we're going to plateau, and we certainly have. The numbers are always going up, but they're going up much slower in our communities than in some of the other communities. If you look at New Jersey, you know, it looks like, oh, we're all getting counted, but when you really look in these cities, and then you can look at these cities and look within them in certain sections of the cities, you can really see there's some pockets that are not self-responding at all.
Well, doesn't COVID-19 have a lot to do with this? I mean, I don't want to compare to where we were this time 10 years ago in terms of the actual data, but in terms of the robust plan that you had. Tell us about that and how that has been impacted and what adjustments are being made to sort of recover this time and resources that have been committed.
Yeah, my plan crashed and burned about a month ago. It's still that's painful. But most of what the plan dealt with was working with people one-on-one in person, seeing people, going to churches, houses of worship, going to parades, going places where people are already there, so then we can have conversations as we pass out information or census swag or things like that. So all of those things, we started what I'll call a war room. I had a war room with New Brunswick, New Jersey, for example. We all had T-shirts, and we had a map, and we're showing this is where the hardest area is. We're going to go in there, and we're going to canvass the businesses. Well, the businesses are closed. We're all in lockdown, and we're being safe. So now we have to change our strategy. This is something I was going to say later, but I'll say now. Be encouraged with whatever you're doing. You don't necessarily have to change the goal. You just need to change the strategy. Your goals are not dashed. It's the strategy. You just have to change how you're doing what you're doing. So we have had to pivot. We had no choice. And so we're doing a lot more on digital platforms, virtually speaking, opportunities like this. We're doing a lot on Twitter, Facebook, something on Instagram. I'm doing personal phone calls, and that's one of the slides towards the end that talks about what you can do, because we still need to talk to people one-on-one. Seniors was a big area. Seniors typically took the census in the Black community unless they were, seniors that took the census before, they continue to take the census. There are some that we like to call them street preachers, where they stand on the corner and they say everything that's wrong with America, and this is why I'm not going to do it. So that's a different group, and they go for decades. But the seniors we were concerned about this time were those that took it 10 years ago and were afraid that they would have to take it online this year because they're not, technologically savvy. They don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. So the good news on that is that the paper forms are now coming out. They should be out by the end of this month if they don't have it already. So they can finish them like they used to 10 years ago. Just fill it out and send it in. Mm-hmm. I'm calling people. At church, we have an Adopt a Senior initiative where we all take a senior and mm-hmm. we check on them, see how they're doing. And I did those two, and then at the end I said, I work with trying to get people to take the census. Did you take your census yet? And mine, I took mine on the phone, and so she's ready. And I've checked on a few other people, and even walked one through online. Some stuff is going to be painfully, one by one. But if each one can do it and then turn it around and have them talk to their families and friends, hey, Tricia just had me finish my census. Did you do yours yet? Coming from them,
right?
That's going to help as well. So the good news is we have until October 31st now to do it. So mm-hmm. it's not like we have to turn it right around in the summertime. So it's a slower process, but mm-hmm. I think we'll be able to still get
on the other side of that. Do you think that the numbers are starting to peak or will peak because more people are actually home? And sort of what you're doing and what your church is doing is kind of and we don't have to get too deep into it, but just a little bit about community service, or as I call them, service learning opportunities, as we call them here at the college, where students actually get an opportunity to learn the work versus just come in and maybe, I know when you work in politics, you may just lick the envelope, hand, the seniors a soda or something like that, but to actually come in and get an apprenticeship type of an experience while volunteering. And I know you guys are pivoting to make adjustments, but are any opportunities for students, college students, to be able to volunteer and make phone calls, to attend tutorials and trainings that you may have on how you can help within your community or from home to promote the census and encourage folks to fill it out?
And we're still working on our pivot. So that would be part of an area where we could definitely look into it. We were going to have an apprenticeship opportunity last month, and our office is closed and things are different. But I do see value in phone calls. There's a lot of people that are in civic. I'm in a nonprofit, but there's a lot of civic organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League that actually has the VAN tool, the voter I think it's Voter Access Network, but the vote, it's a tool with a lot of numbers where people use the script to actually talk to people about voting. Mm-hmm. They can also use that as they're talking to people about voting to talk to people about taking the census and just reminding them to take the census. So if you have access to that, that is something a lot of people are doing. And we're also having I'm talking with some elected officials. You can contact your own elected official, your mayor, your council person. They're doing robocalls because while people are sitting at home, so to answer your first question, no, even though people are sitting at home, they're not doing the census. And it's understandable. I mean, I don't lead my conversations with the census, even though it's my job to do so.
But we're doing the TikTok, even the adults are doing the TikTok. How come we're not doing the census? What do you think that's about? Are we not?
Well, we're trying.
Be honest.
But, here's the thing, Terrance. I mean, we have to put it in perspective. First of all, I've done a TikTok. I'm not telling you where it is. You don't need to know. That's okay. We're gonna. Some of us go with the younger people and get that done. But on the serious side, first, you have to realize most of the people that we're focused on in the Black community that were not being counted, there's a fear and distrust of the government. And this was before COVID-19. There's a fear and distrust of the government. There are people that still think the citizenship question is on the census, which it is not. Okay. There are people that are concerned their information was going to go to the IRS because they didn't do their taxes, or it's going to go to the landlord who's going to look and say there's too many people here. They're not doing that. But these are things that we were trying to fight before COVID-19. And now if you add to it, a lot of the people that are impacted by COVID-19, we could be talking to somebody that's sick, that's unemployed, or an essential worker, or is bereaved because someone lost someone to COVID-19, or all of those. You know, either essential or unemployed, take one, but they could be any of those combinations. So walking in and just starting off with, did you take the census? They're thinking about other things. So I really applaud people like Mayor Baraka of Newark, who, when he has his briefings, very often he talks about, while you're home, take the census. And so I've been encouraging other elected officials. I was able to get my CEO, Ryan Haygood, to talk to the governor to actually tell us to do it, because he's at the highest level and we listen to him every day. We're trying to get different trusted messengers to get the message out so that people who aren't thinking about it can just take 10 minutes and shape your future. You have to focus on what's going on right now, but if you can take those 10 minutes and make sure your next 10 years are, funded for you for these types of things, then that's important. So that's kind of the direction we're taking. I will say yesterday, my company, my organization, we did a video. I pray one day it will come up to the public, and if so, I'll send you a link. It's not TikTok, but it's all fun, and so we're all trying to do something in this digital space, and I encourage others to do that as well.
We appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's important to see how we can see ourselves in the cause. And it's true, you can use a TikTok video to promote census, right? To get younger people excited, and even older folks who are doing it as well. And so social media is a great way to promote you. Definitely support that. Before I get to the video, because I want to get into more of your presentation, definitely check out the video. We do have a question from Star, and I was going to say, tell Ryan I said hello. I don't want to debate on the webinar who has the better boss, because I have a great one here. But Ryan is the man. We want to get, okay, look, and she pops up, right? And so on cue. And so Ryan, we definitely want to get on campus to talk to our incoming freshman first-year students, but also the men on campus. So please put in a good word for us, and I'll send them a message as well. So I
sure will.
I appreciate it. The question before we get to the video is from one of our, I'll say, most loyal watchers, is Star Muhammad. And she says, it appears, and it goes into the trust thing, because if we treat the census like politicians often treat us, where you only come around for election time, it's kind of what her question is saying. It appears that we don't really hear enough about the census until every 10 years. What steps can be taken throughout the year to bring more awareness about the census, especially in school-age children, so they'll know how important the census is by the time they're of age to complete it? Can this become, we took out civic lessons in our public curriculums. We know places like Newark, you mentioned Mayor Baraka. We have a wonderful partnership thanks to Dean Lammy, and I know Dean Mitchell is also on the check-in, multitasking as always, in terms of a partnership with the Newark Public Schools to get more of their students to come to Bloomfield under a scholarship. But, and the school board, my point in mentioning that, is trying to move legislation to require civic lessons back in school. Should census be something that is taught a part of curriculum? Should that become a part of the fabric of our quality of life in terms of when we have our different community meetings? Should we be talking about it way before the 10-year mark?
Yes. The short answer is yes. We should not just be talking about it this year. We should have some sense of it every year, because we know it's coming. It's just like any national holiday. We know it's coming every year, and we need to know more about it and how important it is. When I started this position a year and a half ago, and I tried to start putting the plan together, there were a lot of people that were saying, oh, it's too early, it's 2018. It's not too early. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people were found flat-footed after, a year went by, and they noticed that these groups, we call them complete count committees. They're in each city. We have a statewide one. We had ours all created about 8 months ago, and maybe even a year ago. And now some of our communities are they were just starting to create them in March when COVID hit. And so now we do need to let the kids know. Kids are the biggest group of people that are not counted, children under 5 in particular. And so if they're able to hear it in school, bring it home to their parents, and do it continually, I agree. By the time we get to the 8th year, the 9th year, and we always do it on the 0, by then people should be ready and looking forward to taking it and being a part of the country's fabric. Absolutely.
What do you have to say about the video? Anything you would like to intro before we play that we should know?
No, it's just a small video by the Census Bureau. It's less than 2 minutes, and it just describes why it's important, kind of how we got there, and why you should take the census. Very.
We're doing really good in the chat. We're live on Facebook, and so please, audience, sit back and enjoy the video. Remember, you can still comment, ask questions, and we'll answer them. If anybody would like to come on and ask a question directly, we welcome that. If you're having an experience with census in your organization, you can share that as well.
I think if you just hold on, we're having some technical difficulties, and we'll get the video started as soon as we can. Terrance, the video is not showing on my end. Or is it showing on yours? Can't hear you. Your mic is off.
I saw it on my end. I'm going to see if anyone in the chat saw it too. Let's see.
I think Ms. Williamson said it's not showing on hers as well.
Okay, yes. Someone else, Daryl, said he didn't get to see it. Okay, hold on. Let me see what's going on. Let me have to share it directly from out of the PowerPoint. Sorry about that. Just 1 second. We're going to try a different way.
Okay. And if it doesn't work, I can put the link in the chat box.
Okay. guys hear that?
Nope.
Okay, let me go ahead and put the link in the chat box,
Okay.
and then people can look at it at their leisure. Let's see here. And I can talk a little bit about what they might want to do. All right, chat box. Well, now it's going to come up. I'll still put it in. I'll still put it in.
Technology at its best.
Okay. So, and let me pull myself back in. So that's okay. It's a very, it was about this length of time. So we can go ahead. But it's a nice little short video that I would show the first year students, and it just gave an overall summary. It talked about why it was important and talked about how you can take it. Just really nice way to put it together in a summary for 2 minutes. So now they're saying they can see.
Okay, good. Let me see if I can get them sound.
Okay.
Give me a hands up if you can see the screen, the pause screen, United Census.
We see it.
We
Okay,
see it in
excellent.
the volume.
Okay, she's not in it.
I think there's
We
a
see
streaming issue.
That's not the video, but we do see your screen.
Yeah, I think it's probably the streaming issue, Terrance, maybe from the campus.
Okay, hold on. So you can see this YouTube screen though, correct?
Mm-hmm. We can see it, but she's pausing it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
One second. So the last video you sent was not necessarily the right one from the PowerPoint, correct?
Right, not with Judy Woodruff. That's a different one.
Okay.
I put it in the chat box so people can look at it at their leisure.
Excellent. Okay. So the next, I want to still continue with the PowerPoint, if you don't mind.
Yes, that would be great.
Okay.
So a lot of this we've already spoken through, so I'll just touch these briefly. In terms of, as students, there's a lot of census data that impacts funding, and we look at things like, we already talked about the Pell Grant program, but there's also school safety. There's, if you're specifically in agriculture, science, or engineering education, those areas have funding from the federal government. Student wellness programs, we're going to really need a lot of that when we come back in full time, because being in this type of isolated environment and the way things are going, a lot of us need to go talk to somebody about some things. So that needs to be there. We talked about school breakfast and lunch, and I already just touched on the community mental health services. In the next slide, we talk about just a reminder of how a few minutes can shape your future. So we know that with the COVID-19 pandemic, there's a lot of things that you do have on your mind, but we do want to make sure that you know that your response is going to inform how the money is going to flow into the community services. So one of the myths that's out there, they say, and we went out and we just talked to about 15 different black people that had no intention of taking the census. They said it. So we said, okay, why? And so one of the answers was because, well, it's already been decided where the money's going. And that one is one of the few that we were like, well, yes and no. We know the categories where the money is going, but we do not know how much of the funding will be there. That totally depends on how many of you actually say, I'm here. So historically black colleges and universities, including Bloomfield College, although it's not a technically historically black college or university, here in New Jersey, it is recognized as a predominantly
black institution.
Right, and so federal funding comes in through that, and minority-owned businesses. Want to also make sure you remember that it's safe, and you know it's easy. We find it online, phone, or by mail, but in terms of safety, the Census Bureau will not turn your information over to any of the other places I mentioned, government, IRS, Homeland Security, ICE, none of those. They don't get your information. I will say, someone wanted to know, 72 years from now, they will give it to the Historical Commission, which puts it into the census area where you see like Ancestry.com and the National Archives, but that's 72 years from now. So if you're 20 years old right now, 72 years from now, the same people who might be looking for you, they're not looking for you anymore. So don't. Next.
And then there's a part of that the FBI really wants you. They can kind of find you, right?
Right. Well, that's right.
That's
and
another
census. Right. Exactly. This one we mentioned a little bit, on campus or off campus. If you're on campus, Dr. Lammy and others with the Student Affairs, they're going to take care of that with the Census Bureau in terms of how you're counted. On campus. If you're off campus and you're in your own residence with roommates, you need to count yourself. And so if you didn't get your code, your special census ID, you can still get online and put in your address, and it will allow you to count yourself and your roommates. You should probably connect with each other to make sure that you coordinate it, but even if you don't, just go ahead and do it. The census will take care of it on the back end. If two of you do it, they'll call one of you and they'll get it so that it's accurate.
That kind of reminds me, what brings me to a question too. What are the other colleges or universities doing to promote and help students in terms of the Census 2020? Have you heard anything about that? Have you engaged in activities like this with other colleges? Anything that Bloomfield should know about?
Well, Dr. Evans knows I have a connection with the Andrew Goodman Foundation, and we had a chance. Well, she and I didn't get a chance to see each other at the same time, but I spoke there while I think you came, and I just missed you. But I spoke to them, and I've also spoken with the Secretary of Higher Education for New Jersey, Dr. Zakiya Smith-Ellis, and her staff. And basically, they're all pivoting. So there's a lot on Twitter, which was nice to see. They're aligning with in some cases, they're aligning with their cities, where, for example, Rutgers University, Newark, they started tweeting about the Census Day that they just had on April 15th. There's a contest where you can win $1,000 for the most interesting census selfie. So they sent that out through Rutgers, Newark, because, being in Newark, that's where a lot of people are, and $1,000 is something that a lot of people were very interested in.
Right.
Rowan, Stockton, and Montclair, those are some other ones that I touched base on, and they were also just getting the information out to students while they're online. So it's not what we wanted in terms of being able to do the door-to-door, but I think we're still all working on that, and we can still continue to work on that through the summer.
I think that's helpful. Thank you for sharing, because it can give ideas how student groups are still interested, some of them, in terms of doing different things, and they're looking for ways that they can be involved. I know our student government treasurer and secretary asked a couple of weeks ago, how can we promote? How can the school become an advocate in this from home on the different social media sites, as you said as well? So I definitely I saw that La Casa D. Don Pedro, one of the nonprofits, also had like a video contest for a census commercial. So those things are cool ideas. This side we did a show before, and I know you mentioned Bloomfield. Is Bloomfield College helping Bloomfield be in top place in terms of moving ahead?
Yes, yes, it is, and that's a great thing, because even the good thing is students in dormitories don't have to. They have nothing to do with it. If you're in a dormitory, the Census Bureau has worked with your administration to count people in the dormitory. So Bloomfield did, they really did well, and I think that had a lot to do with the college sitting right in the middle of it. So, but my only concern, even though Bloomfield did well, I didn't look at all of the little blocks of areas. My only concern is where your students may live off campus.
Right.
Those might be areas where there's just, it could be almost zero. And so we want to make sure that when you're talking to your college students that may have lived off campus, let them know they need to count too. Because what happened if they went home, that letter came in the mail and it's just sitting there. So, and Bloomfield needs that funding, because even though, we pray, and I know all parents pray, their student is not in college for 10 years. This is a pay it forward opportunity, so that somebody should be sitting in that seat or living in that house and using the services as they continue for the next 10 years.
Tell us a little bit about this resource slide.
Yeah, this is a slide in terms of what you can do. So we talked about encouraging your family and friends. The two that I wanted to touch base on, actually I'll start with, I'm going to just jump in the middle. New Jersey Friends and Family Census Outreach Project. This was introduced yesterday, so this is very new. No, not that one. Go back. That's why I'm going to do that one last. This is from the Secretary of State's department. This is their idea. And so what they're doing, they're asking people to basically, the same way I talked about encouraging family and friends by talking to people, they have a script for you. So if you're talking to your family, you're talking to your friends, and like I said, work it in. Don't just walk in there and talk about the census. See how people are doing, and make it part of the conversation. Have you done, I finished my census. Have you done yours yet? And they have a script for yes, no, what to do. And then once you're done, when they've taken it, ask them to take the same project and talk to another 3 people, talk to another 5 people, and so on and so on. It doesn't have to just be in New Jersey, but that's how we're talking about that trusted messenger. And so that project is at that website that literally just came up yesterday. So now I'll go back to the first bullet. This is coming directly from the Institute. We have a Census Pledge. So on the next slide, it's actually a 2-sided flyer, but we have a pledge. So this is one of our ways of digital outreach that we started a few months ago. If you text pledge or censo in Spanish to that number that's right there, 973-348-6688, the text will come back to you. It'll ask you a few questions about why the census is important to you, and then it will create a small digital pledge card with your name. Can't really see it on the screen, but it'll have your first name and say, the census is important to me because. And you can either choose one of the actual multiple choices, or you can fill in your own blank. You can then use that and upload it wherever you want to. So if you want to upload it to your Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and encourage people to continue to take the pledge, that's something that brings attention to it. On the back of the card, what you can't see is it's also a virtual help desk. So if you have any questions that are census related, you can type them into that same phone number, and it will return an answer to you based on the database of questions that have been created over the last 2 years. And it's been updated for COVID-19. All the dates are updated, so it's a good resource for people that might not want to ask certain questions in public.
In terms of just procedural, this is one of the other questions we wanted to get to. Was there a conversation at any level about possibly postponing? And as an organizer or leader, director in this particular initiative, what side of that would you have been on in terms of maybe pushing it to Census 2021? How would that impact us? Was that discussed at all?
It was discussed. It was well over my head, but we did have discussions in New Jersey about the extension. So we do have an extension. There's a website that I'll put in the chat that the Census Bureau has updated their extension. So as I mentioned earlier, we're now from the last day of self-response used to be July 31st.
Mm-hmm.
Now is October 31st. They wanted a full 120-day extension so that they can get some of our people. That in and of itself is okay. But from the Constitution, the day they're supposed to get the information to the president is December 31st, 2020.
Okay.
Now that that's done in October, they can't do it. And so what they're proposing is that Congress vote next month on extending that December 31st date out to April 30th. Then they will get the information from April 30th to the states, from the White House and the Census Bureau to the states by July 31st, 2021. In the meantime, New Jersey was supposed to have a gubernatorial primary the first week of June 2021. So you see, this impacts us directly. If we don't have the data we need for the redistricting that I talked about, we don't know who's in what area in order to have that primary in each district. So we're going to have to also move our dates. And so we're moving our dates. You know, they move their dates, we move our dates. New Jersey and Virginia are the two earliest states in the nation to have primaries and off elections and things like that. So this doesn't really impact other states, but it does impact New Jersey. So at first I was very concerned about it, but I do understand the need for the accurate count. And so in talking to some people off the record that are in the legislature on the state level, it sounds like it's something that's not completely unprecedented. They've done some constitutional changes before where those dates that we have in our New Jersey Constitution can be extended in order to make sure that we can do it. So my hope is that by the census moving into 2020, the end of 2020, and getting that information to us later next year, that we can still make up the difference and eventually get back to the dates that we're used to. But we will be able to accommodate that.
So two questions that came in, and one I think we can link to the other. I know I would like to, definitely in my role here at the college, utilize your pledge card to encourage student leaders to help promote it within their networks. But one question was, well, it was a statement and a question. One, they like the pledge side. Where can we get a copy to post to our social media platforms?
Let's see. I have some. Of course, you know, when the building closed, I ran out with like 1 million. And I'm just looking. I mean, I just ran like, well, of course, I can't pull it out right now. But I have, oh, here we go. So this is one of like 1 million in my house. So this is the second side. And this is the one that basically just talks about what I was saying in terms of putting it in. We have a good 1,000. We have thousands. So if you need any, when all of this is over, just let me know. We'd be happy to ship some your way.
Is there a way that we can post it on Instagram or Facebook?
I will ask my communications director, I'm sure. We have proof, so I know, you know, people could print them. So I'm sure we can get something to you so that we can get that up this week.
And so Cal, who's also one of the student government leaders here and one of our candidates for student government this year, wanted to know how can you promote the importance of the census here at Bloomfield College better, any ideas that you would have, and also what are the factors that play a part within planning more ways to promote the census, also with understanding it. So is there a certain, do you just create your own thing? I guess he's kind of asking, is there a website you can go to and say, you know, I would like to sign my student group up or my organization, my community group, or me and my friends up to do something and maybe get some formal branding? What's the recommendations or protocol?
You can always reach out to me. We have, I'm part of a statewide coalition of nonprofits. We call ourselves the Census 2020 NJ Coalition. Within that, I'm the primary focus on African American, Black Americans. There's other groups for children under 5, the Latinx group, the immigrant group, Asian American, well, Asians, and some generic ones as well. So League of Women Voters is also in it. So if you come through us, we can at least help coordinate some of the things and give some best practices and some things that have already been done. Because even though we're all focusing on our own specific demographic, we all work together. I mean, we have Black immigrants, Black children under 5. You know, we have everything together. So we're all working together and promoting our things. We also work with the state of New Jersey. So that other idea that I mentioned that was on my slide, we as a coalition work with the state, the New Jersey Department of State. And so there's some things that you can do if you want to get together, if you want to create a complete count committee. It's a group of people that come from different walks of life. Everyone has something in common. Usually it's a city in common, but sometimes it's a demographic. For example, my Delta chapter is a complete count committee, and we're focused on African Americans in Somerset, Union, and Middlesex counties. That's a way you can create a complete count committee. Other ones are county level, city level. You could have one at the school level. So if you want to do something like that, then you would go through the state and through the Census Bureau. Carolina Chia, who's on the line, she can help you with that through the Census Bureau. There's some training that you would get. It's very, very, direct training, just so that make sure when you are talking to people, you're stating the facts. And then your group is considered official. We'll put you in a list of groups in terms of complete count committees, and then you're ready to go.
What do you think, as you mentioned voting earlier, obviously Cohort 15 is impacting the elections. Then I want to ask you a little bit about the social justice agency that you work for too. What's the connection to the topic today and the turnout of, say, college students in state, local, and federal elections? Is there a connection between the two, or are there any common themes? And what would you say, or what are you guys offering to still motivate people to vote? So like in Newark, there's a school board election that's being moved to, I think, vote by mail only, those type of things. These are obviously connected to the census. When you vote your circumstance, you impact the way or how things go as it relates to the funding of the census, who represents your interests in that regard. So what do you have to say, or what would you offer in regards to those things and its connection to the topic today?
So they're very related. In terms of civic engagement, there's two things that you can do this year, especially. We want you to take the census, and we want you to vote. We want you to vote as many times as you can. You can vote in a primary, in a special election, in the presidential election. We want you to vote all the time. At the Institute, we really have a lot of emphasis on the voter engagement process. We were instrumental in working with the government to get to the those that were disenfranchised because they were on parole or probation. Mm-hmm. We helped pass that law so that they are now able to register to vote. Of course, when the registration to vote came through on March 17th, that's when COVID shut things down. And so now it's more difficult. That's an area where I would definitely say people can start working with people who can get the news out, because some people don't even know that, you know, that they are now eligible to vote if they're in that area. And then the part of having now you can't really go anywhere, so you have to print it out, register. We're working now to get online voter registration so that people can truly register, not just download a form and mail it. With COVID-19, that's not the same. So what we prefer is that you can just do it online like other states can. Voting by mail, as you mentioned, May 12th is the next date for several special elections that were in March, April, and May 12th. They're all May 12th. One thing I will say about that is that if you're in one of those areas, we have a flyer. I don't have that. I can't pull that out of my bag, but I have it online that shows every special election that's going to happen on May 12th, mm-hmm. every county, every city. And if you're in one of those and you're already registered to vote, you should receive a ballot. You don't have to register to or apply to ask for a mail-in ballot. They will send one to you. They should. And so if you think it's a sample ballot, don't throw it away. That's your real ballot. And it has a self-addressed stamped envelope. You fill it out, you send it back. And that's how the May 12th will work. In the meantime, you probably know our June primary election has been moved to July 7th. Mm-hmm. What we're working with at the Institute is to make sure that although it is also vote by mail, we also want that open, because there are people that are not good candidates for vote by mail. There are certain people in the disability area that depending on their disability, they need to come in. They need access. There's people who are transient that may be living in different places for different reasons. They're not going to get a vote by mail ballot. So we want to make sure we don't disenfranchise anyone. So we want the opportunity to have a safe voting place, a polling place, but also make sure that these other options are there. So the Institute's doing quite a bit with that area of work.
We're definitely glad about the Institute and the work they're doing. That's definitely progressive. I added Carolina just briefly to the panel just to see if she had something that she may want to add in, because I do know that she's a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau, and she was gracious enough to join. Before I release her mic, you talked about, I mean, just the thing about the trust and the issue with the census, and ironically, this going on at the same time as the COVID situation and now the absentee ballots. So some folks may not get absentee ballots. If I don't get an absentee ballot by a certain date, and what date is that, what should I do?
You should definitely, the offices, people may not be in the office per se, but you can still call. You can still contact the offices, and they should be able to have that conversation with you to see what's going on. Mm-hmm. We had a person in my sphere who was registering for the first time since the parole and probation came through, and there was a snag in terms of why his registration wasn't coming through. Turned out they read his middle name wrong, and so it took time, but they were able to continue to stay in contact with a person in the Board of Elections for that county, and they were able to get the proper information. So still, you have to be your own advocate. They're not going to come looking for you. You have to make sure if you're ready, you know. So for May 12th, the deadline for registration was April 21st, just a couple of days. Mm-hmm. That's for registration. I don't know any additional dates in terms of by when you should received the other ones. I'd have to come back to you on that. I do know if you plan to register, there's always that 21-day time frame between the registration and the actual vote. So that was April 21st.
So I know you said many of the deadlines, and then I'll bring Carolina in, but S.E.R.V.E was asking, she said she had the opportunity to complete her census online before COVID-19, and she did get confirmation back, but she remembered it being something about an April 1st cutoff in that regard, and she was asking, or wanted to confirm that the date was extended, and if so, when was it again?
This is for the census?
Yes, so I don't know if there's an online deadline different than maybe the physical paper.
No, April 1st. So April 1st is not a deadline. And thank you for giving me the chance to say that. April 1st is a benchmark. April 1st, whenever you choose to take the census, take it based on where you were or where you were supposed to be on April 1st. So, and I say that because, especially since we're talking at Bloomfield College,
right.
If you were supposed to be at college, you're supposed to count yourself at the college on April 1st. So even now, the deadline to do the census, the self-response portion, is now October 31st. But even if you take it October 31st, the census needs to know where you were on April 1st.
Or should have been.
Closer to the time, so you don't have to think, well, where was I? Just, do it now. Do it now.
Can I say that too? I want to add into that just very quickly before you bring in Carolina. We emptied most of our students off of our dorms. We have a 600 bed capacity. And so 400 plus students left because of COVID-19. So we only have now, like I said, about 100 students on campus. So we need to make sure our students realize that if they were living a res life and went home still, they need to use Bloomfield as that reference point where they would have been on April 1st if we did not have to send students home.
Carolina, anything you want to add?
Hi, yes, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it. Ms. Williamson is pretty much a census employee at this point. She's got everything down. So yes, the April 1st, quote unquote, cutoff date, that's very familiar. So I am also glad someone brought it up. That is not a deadline. When people, either go online or get their paper form or call in to fill out their questionnaire, April 1st is going to be, like Ms. Williamson said, a benchmark. They're going to ask you, where were you living on April 1st? That even goes to any women that just gave birth. If your baby was born on April 1st or prior, you count them for this decennial. You count them in your form. Babies born April 2nd and beyond, they will get counted in 2030. I also want to reiterate the extension. We now have until October 31st to respond, when originally our cutoff date was July 31st. So that gives us a little bit more time to get everybody counted. We need everybody counted. I think this is just on a personal level, not as a census employee. This is just Carolina speaking. The times that we're living right now should really kind of also, I know that, as Ms. Williamson mentioned, we have to think about the people we're talking to as people that may or may not be going through, losing their job, losing a loved one, going through this pandemic because they're ill. But all of that should make us think, we need to get better prepared for whatever other situation that may come. Mm-hmm. Filling out our census makes us count. Filling out our census will give us an accurate count as to, with regard to, hospital beds and testing kits and PPE, we need to get our count accurate so that we all know, you know, like Miss Williamson said, we have the power to gain our own respect and to let everyone know that we are here.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if anybody has any additional questions that I can answer, but I think everything has been covered thus far.
We appreciate that. Any final remarks? In terms of the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, I have to, as the one of the team members for the Center for Student Leadership, we have a great team over there that's helping out with the S.E.R.V.E program, which is our volunteer hub. Are there any volunteer opportunities, mentorship opportunities, when the time is appropriate, that can come through the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice?
I believe the official ones have already been taken. I believe we have our summer interns already lined up and apprenticeships, etc. There was one small apprenticeship that we were trying to do with another college, and it fell through because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I don't know if that's coming back or not. But so right now, I would say we went through our internship and apprenticeship process officially already. So we can't do anything.
But we're putting our bid in, so you'll keep us in mind, hopefully, right? I'll put a note in your faculty mailbox.
And for the right. Okay, yeah, don't put anything in that mailbox. Then email me. Email me. But if people do want to help with the census, as we mentioned before, you know, definitely reach out. We can work at least through my African American Sub-Coalition just to, you know, give the best practices and maybe some guidance and direction on what you may want to do at the college. We can definitely do that.
We appreciate that. We will definitely be in touch. We definitely want to promote, again, if you can get us the graphic for the pledge, it's something that we'll make a part of the campaign efforts that we're doing here on campus with the census. And obviously the student leaders can definitely share it with their different student groups as well. And so any information like that that you think would be helpful, we would be more than happy to help to disseminate socially and post on our different platforms.
And when we come back, I mean, thousands. That please, thousands. I will send thousands.
Dr. Evans, any final words or closing comments? This is actually, we do have 2 more webinars, but I will not be hosting them. I get a break. Norita, who's our part-time program coordinator, has 2 great events. One is with our Career Development Office, webinars planned, and then she has another one next Wednesday with a nurse who actually had the COVID virus, fighting through it, and wants to share her story, which we are really looking forward to. So we've actually, Dr. Evans, closed the podcast off for the rest of the semester. We're doing webinars still, but the Wednesday podcast, we're going to give those dates over to allow for those type of programs to close out. And we have some other things that we're focused on, but we'll be back with the podcast hopefully at the end of August. And hopefully we'll be covering the pledge cards and sort of the initiative right here from the campus. But are there any final comments or words you have as it relates to this? And I know we'll see you on Tuesday for the town hall that you're hosting, that we're hosting for you for the students with your vice president cabinets and the president of the student body. You can talk a little bit about that, and again, any final comments as it relates to today's topic.
Sure. You know, again, I thank everyone for just, you know, sticking with us and listening to us. You know, we're trying to keep this in the forefront. The college is committed to, again, making sure that our voices are heard and that we're counted. You know, we are the only predominantly Black institution, also Hispanic serving institution in the state of New Jersey. And so, you know, our students, again, a large percentage, as you mentioned earlier, Ms. Williamson, as far as Black and Brown students, sometimes those voices are not heard and or not counted. And those, so the resources that we need to have, we need to show up to make sure we can get those resources. So, you know, I appreciate, and I've been participating in these webinars just to show my support. I love to hear from the experts such as yourself and others. But just being here and letting you know I'm behind you all 100%. And the college is committed to doing whatever we need to do to support the efforts that you all are leading within the community. Now, going back to the event on next Tuesday, I'll be meeting with hopefully a lot of the students. You know, I like the way the Zoom is set up, but I actually like seeing people. If it's 100 or 300 people on a Zoom, I can just kind of wave and say hi. That's just my personality. So we're having, instead of my typical chat and chew, we're gonna be chatting, and if you wanna bring some food and chew from your own home, that's okay. But just to touch bases with everyone and check in and see how everyone's doing. You know, every week I do a little video, just trying to reach out to you. And again, keep sending me the emails and letting me know how you're doing, how your family members are doing. We're praying for you. Please continue to pray for us and the college as well. We have a lot of wonderful staff that's working, a lot of faculty that is working really, really hard. This is not what we planned when we started in January. And I was talking to somebody the other day, June 1st is coming up as my 1-year anniversary. So I was not planning on this in my first year of a new presidency. So, but we're here together, and you know, we're family. So thank you again, Mr. Bankston, for leading and guiding us through this. And I wish everyone the best.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. And once again, thank you, Ms. Williamson. We'll be in touch soon. You were amazing. I won't go through all the comments, but you were getting some flattering comments as well from audience members saying how great you look, and so on and so forth. And so we appreciate the great work you do. We'll definitely like to have you on campus. You are an example and inspiration of what not just young ladies can become when they leave Bloomfield College, but even a role model for young men as well. And so we appreciate you and we thank you. Don't forget to tune in next Tuesday, 2 o'clock. We'll be here with Dr. Evans and our vice presidents of our college, the president's cabinet ideally, and the president of our student body. Take care, everybody.
All right, bye-bye.